The dominant global story remains the intensified conflict that began with U.S. and Israeli strikes on Iran following the killing of Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. In the early days, U.S. attacks have ramped up significantly overnight into March 6th, with explosions reported in Tehran and strikes extending to Iranian assets in Lebanon and beyond. Iran's retaliatory missile and drone strikes have dropped sharply, down 90% in some reports, but the conflict has spread risk to Gulf energy infrastructure and pulled in neighbors. President Trump has grown increasingly bullish, stating he expects the war to last weeks, possibly up to 5, and insists that the U.S. must play a major role in selecting Iran's next leader, explicitly calling the late Khamenei's son unacceptable. Trump has predicted regime change not just in Iran, but eyed Cuba next, saying after Secretary of State Marco Rubio is finished with Iran, a deal with Havana could follow quickly. This marks a sharp pivot from earlier restraint rhetoric, with Trump listing reasons for the strikes and warning of more U.S. casualties ahead. Congress has repeatedly declined to intervene. The House voted down 212 to 219, a resolution to curb Trump's war powers yesterday, following a similar Senate failure. A few dissenting voices, like Republican Ro Khanna and some GOP restrainers, warn of abandonment of anti-intervention principles, but most Republicans back the president. NATO allies are reluctantly edging in, and energy markets are volatile. Gas prices spiking, with waivers offered to countries like India for Russian oil purchases amid supply fears. This war dominates headlines as a potential turning point in Middle East geographic politics, with questions about post-war scenarios from negotiated and to prolonged regime change efforts to major shakeup at Department of Homeland Security. In a major sudden move, President Trump fired Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem on March 5th and nominated Oklahoma Senator Markwayne Mullin, a MAGA warrior, as replacement. Noem's tumultuous tenure ended amid controversies, including a $200 million taxpayer-funded ad campaign scrutinized in hearings with allegations of fraud, corruption, and conflicts, plus broader immigration enforcement frustrations. Representative Joe Nicusa's pointed questioning reportedly contributed to her ouster. Mullin, who previously defended the January 6th shooting of Ashley Babbitt as justified, faces confirmation ahead. The firing hasn't resolved an ongoing DHS funding battles. Senate Democrats blocked the spending bill for the third time, demanding guardrails on immigration enforcement even as war heightens border and terror arguments. Trump appointed Noem to a new Shield of the Americas role, possibly tied to Latin America pressure campaigns. This reshuffle highlights internal administration tensions and immigration as a persistent flashpoint. Domestic political ripples and other U.S. stories. House GOP leaders pressure Representative Tony Gonzalez to drop his re-election bid after he admitted an affair with a late staffer. He appears set to end his campaign. Separately, rare hardline Republican voices question the Iran war. Over 20 Democratic state attorneys general sued President Trump over new global tariffs imposed after a Supreme Court ruling, calling them illegal attempts to sidestep oversight. Tariffs tie into broader economic pressures from the war. The House Oversight Committee subpoenaed Attorney General Pam Bondi over Jeffrey Epstein files / investigation. The Justice Department released some FBI memos on old Trump-related allegations. Trump hosted Inter Miami with Lionel Messi at the White House, blending sports with geopolitical rifts. Pressure on Latin American leaders to cut China ties continues, including travel bans and port warnings. The Iran conflict overshadows other developments, but ripples include U.S.-Venezuela agreement to reestablish diplomatic ties post-Maduro shift, China prioritizing stability amid war fallout, potential NATO involvement, and Gulf nations facing Iranian drone and missile risks. Public opinion data suggests Trump's base largely backs the Iran action so far, despite broader concerns about duration and cost. Midterm implications loom as the war influences voter priorities like energy prices and foreign entanglements. Overall, today reflects a high-stakes moment. Trump doubling down on aggressive foreign policy while managing domestic personnel and congressional turbulence. The Iran war's trajectory, escalation versus de-escalation, will likely drive headlines into the weekend. Stay tuned for updates as events move fast.